Eric, I overheard a student asking you a question this morning. She said, why did it take you so long to come to Thailand?
Well, I have been here many times.
Without anyone knowing?
Well, in Google's case, we didn't come until there was a civilian government that we could work with on the various regulations, and indeed we have very good relations now with the government. That was what the delay was about.
On the list of priorities at Google headquarters, where does Thailand stand?
Well, this, in general, the ASEAN region is our fastest growing region. And it looks to us like Thailand will grow very rapidly for us for a number of years. I think partly because Thailand is at a point where the adoption of the internet is going to accelerate because of the arrival of 3G, the development of smartphones, and so forth. The government is stable enough, right?
Hopefully,
stable enough that there's good economic growth, and with that comes connectivity. It's interesting that the SIM card penetration here is 130%. So the country is already using phones. We now need to get everyone using the internet as well.
Well, among the 10 ASEAN countries, where is Thailand?
Well, if you look at the ones that are most advanced, Singapore is probably at the top, although that's a very small country. And Thailand is probably behind Malaysia and Singapore in connectivity, although obviously there are many benefits to Thailand in terms of its consumer sophistication. So with the connectivity, which I think is coming in the next year, Thailand should be able to become one of the very top very quickly. It's certainly ahead of, for example, Vietnam and Cambodia and Laos, simply because they are developmentally earlier, as is Indonesia.
What does Singapore have that Thailand does not have?
Well, let's start with 100 megabits of internet fiber to every apartment building. That would be a good start. By the way, America doesn't have that either. Another thing that Singapore has is it has a business-friendly environment where it's possible to create a business in one day. So the bureaucracy, the administration is very, very fast.
You have not tested Thailand. How many days did it take you to do business?
Well, in our case, we did it fairly quickly because we had good relations. I'm making a more general point that what Thailand needs is a vibrant software applications ecosystem. And in order to do that, you need great universities, which you have, talented technical people, which you have, but you need more software people, and you need more ability to do startups, and more at-risk capital.
Why not Thailand?
Well, indeed, I think those are regulatory issues that the government needs to focus on. Yeah, the best solution to Thailand's growth is to create more companies, more entrepreneurs, more wealthy founders, more wealth in the stock market, more capital coming in. And I think it's clear that you can do it. I was surprised at how much progress. My first visit to Thailand was 15 years ago. How much progress there has been over the last 15 years. It's a great story. And I was very pleasantly surprised to see how successful your automobile industry is, for example. Right? It's extraordinary. Toyota, Ford, and others.
What does the Thai government, have to do to leapfrog, for Thailand to leapfrog, to be up front among ASEAN countries?
Well, I would start with this mobile revolution. The country, and I apologize for being blunt, has been late with the provisioning of the 3G licenses. We met with the government. The government is working very hard to accelerate 4G licenses. This is crucial for the development. I think that the government understands this, that there are various political regulatory issues. But I'd say that's the number one thing the government needs to do. The second thing to do is to take a look at education and make sure that the education for engineers is encouraged, the kind of engineers that build software and so forth, those will be more and more important. There's no reason to believe that Thailand has any deficit here. There's plenty of smart technical people, and it's a good culture, good relationships with America, good relationships with its neighbors.
Is language a problem?
No, because everybody speaks English.
Everybody?
Well, that was a joke. The reality is that English is the global language, and in order to be successful in software, people will need to speak English. But I'm sure, based on the people that I've spoken with, that English teaching is widespread, and that will continue.
This government has a policy of a tablet for every child. Do you think that works?
I love that idea.
Because you can sell more tablets.
No, actually, we don't sell tablets.
You don't, okay.
But let
You
me
sell
tell
software.
No, we don't actually sell the software for the tablets either.
Okay.
So let me tell you why I love the idea. It's a forward-thinking idea, and it anticipates a world of connectivity. Unfortunately, often when the tablets get in people's hands, the internet that they connect to is not as fast as the tablet. But the tablet idea is a good one. And the right thing to do in the short term is to preload the tablet with educational software. Right? And then over time, as the network gets faster, you'll be able to download new versions. But Thailand is a leader in this one tablet idea. And I think it's an idea that will spread to many, many developing countries. And so it's clear, we don't sell the tablets, we don't sell the software.
So you are supporting it because it's a good policy.
Well, it is a good policy, and let me tell you why it's a good policy for Google. When those kids are adults, they're going to be Google users.
Yes. So you are far-sighted.
So we can wait for them to grow up, knowing that they'll be excellent customers.
Great. The Thai private sector, from what you know, how ready are we for the digital age?
You're getting there. As I understand the Thai consumer behavior, Thais are very sophisticated consumers of fashion, beauty products, cosmetics, very stylish, all of those things. So those are good signs. As I understand the Thai business and consumer culture, consumers have access to credit, they have access to debit cards and credit cards. All of those are necessary, at least in the cities. I'm not so sure about the rural areas, so that's a good sign. And you need all of those to develop it. There are a number of small companies that are doing e-commerce with home delivery and office delivery right from your phone and so forth. Again, another idea that's very important. Here, there's an application called Line, which I suspect everyone in the room is using, which is an example of a new social network that seems to be very popular here with its competitor called WeChat. Between the two, those two will define a lot of the social networks here.
Yes. In your book, your new book, The New Digital Age, you talked about empowerment of the people. You say that with the digital age, people can protest, people can mobilize dissidents, and governments will find it more difficult to control people.
Can I just add that one of the ways you want to say this is what's new? And what's new is that the Thai citizen has tremendous power now with this phone. That's new. They didn't have that before. A lot of power.
I'm not sure whether you are aware or not. We are now having a big protest, political protest in Thailand.
I think that's normal.
Normal, okay. What is interesting is, and it follows what your book says, that these protesters mobilize themselves through social media.
Of course they do.
Through mobile phone, through Facebook, Twitter, Google+, and they now can gather together in huge numbers, much larger than before. Now, it's a pity that the Prime Minister did not come today. She was supposed to open this seminar, but she was caught in this political problem. What would be your advice to the Thai Prime Minister in handling this kind of social change that social media can now get people organized so quickly, so powerfully? If you were Prime Minister, how would you handle it? If the Prime Minister of Thailand asks you, Eric, how the hell do I handle this? Because they get together so quickly and word spreads so rapidly on Facebook, on Google+. Overnight, hundreds and thousands of people are there already.
Well, the first thing I would say is, let's assume that there's another side to the story.
Yes.
Okay? Let's say there's the protesters and then the people who disagree with the protesters. And let's say the protesters are on one side and the government's on another. I would start by fighting the battle of ideas. And I would say that we disagree.
Yes.
But I'd have to explain why we disagree. I'd have to have really good facts. And I'd fight for the leadership position of ideas. And I'd say that if I were doing it and I were on the other side, I'd say, we disagree. They have a right to this view, but here's the other side. And I think that one of the characteristics of these devices is that not everyone's voice is right. Yes. There are people who don't tell the truth. There are people who have their own view. That's okay, right? But I'm a person who believes that if all of us have this debate, we will come to the right answer. So I think it starts, instead of fighting the use of mobile phones, embracing that with the power of an idea. And in a democracy, I think that's how it works. And this is a democracy.
But she doesn't seem to understand that
well,
she can use social media to fight back.
Well, again, I have not spoken with the Prime Minister because she's busy dealing with the current demonstration.
Yes.
But what I would, if I were to have this conversation with her, I would say that the best strategy is to embrace the technology with facts and ideas and be persuasive, right? The old model of controlling people by limiting their movement and disempowering them in countries doesn't work.
But you know that sometimes government cannot tell the truth.
Why not? Don't you think the governments should tell truths?
Well, they think the truth might hurt them.
Well, again, we at Google and I personally believe that the best approach for governments is transparency. And transparency means telling the truth. And there's good and there's bad. And I think, again, in a democracy, transparency is the protection of the citizen. It's truth-telling and so forth. I have no opinion on the political debates within the country.
Okay.
I have no opinion whatsoever, but I do have an opinion that everyone should tell the truth.
But in the social media, there are a lot of lies, falsehoods, half-truths. You think truth can win over in the social media battle?
I do, because my experience is that, let's use an example. We have someone who's a vociferous liar, clever liar. And this person gets 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 people who are not too smart, who believes them, even though it's completely false. I've seen this many times. Maybe 7 or 8 or 9 people. And then somebody says, I'm going to check. And they discover that this person is a liar. And then they say, this person is a liar, these are the facts, these are the arguments, and so forth. In my experience, you have a first wave of a false claim. But very quickly now, very, very quickly, people look at that and they say, not true, and then other people believe them. I genuinely believe that the best answer for bad speech is more speech, right? Not limiting speech. And I'm certainly not, and Google is not in favor of filtering or limiting this kind of political debate. There are countries that do this. The most extreme is China. China just passed a law last week that if you have more than 500 people who are exposed to your idea, which is deemed dangerous to the society,
Yes.
you can be imprisoned. In China, every blogger has at least 500 people. Right?
Yes.
Literally in China, every single one, because there's so many Chinese. That is a very chilling effect, especially if the criteria are arbitrary. So I think the standard should be truth-telling.
Yes.
I think we want to encourage all speech. I think that it may be difficult initially to sort out the truth-tellers and the liars, but there are many, many, many highly educated, sophisticated people, part of this country, that want to know the truth. And I say I'm not an expert on Thailand at all, but I'm quite the expert in the United States.
Yes.
And I will tell you that in the United States, the media and partisan politics are the worst ever. This problem and that problem and so forth. But when you actually look at it, the vast majority of Americans look at one side, they look at another side, they listen, and they come to their own decision, usually the one that's the right one, usually based on fact.
But Google, gathering all the information from around the world, from all the sources, what is Google's responsibility in telling the truth?
Well, I wish
because
we
you
had...
gather lies too.
No, I wish we had an algorithm that exactly defined truth.
Yes.
And also justice, morality, love, human things. We've not quite invented that algorithm. So the best that we can do is we can approximate truth by where most people's view is. So an example would be, I publish a finding.
Yes.
And I announce some lie, right? And it gets great headlines. Very, very quickly, within a few minutes, there'll be articles saying, not only is his finding false, but he's a liar, he's false, he's disruptive, and so forth. Our ranking algorithms will quickly rank that ahead of my claim. So ranking works pretty well. And then the consumer says, hey, I've got the first article says, Eric is a liar, he's an idiot, he's disruptive. Okay, but I hope this is not true. I'm using this as an example. The second one says what Eric's claim is. I'm going to be much more suspicious about Eric. I'm going to check what he says.
But one day soon, you must be able, Google must be able to respond to a question. Is this true, Google?
Well, we're actually working on that.
You have to.
And let me tell you what we're doing. We're building what is called a semantic knowledge graph. And it's called a knowledge graph because it's a set of facts. Now, I wish our facts included which political party is right and, you know, did we like this politician? We can't do that yet. But what we can answer are important questions like, what's the capital of Thailand? Where should I go for dinner? Is this a restaurant that's highly rated?
We already get that.
Right, but
we want more. We want more from Google.
I understand, but this is, for most people,
yes,
where they go for dinner, whether they can get home in time, where is the capital of the country, where is my job, who are my customers? These are important life questions too.
But you think there will be a day when Google can tell the truth for everyone?
I think it will
Check
always
the facts.
be, it will always be, this is speculation now.
Yes.
Okay. I believe that Google will at some point in the future be able to summarize an argument pretty accurately, is my opinion. We're not there yet, and I think we can summarize because Google will be able to understand enough of the argument to present all of the sides in rough priority order. I'll give you an example. There are people who think that America did not land on the moon.
Right.
There are 3 of them. The vast majority of people who've looked at this have concluded that America did land on the moon. Okay, so our summary would be, here's a description of America landing on the moon, and the last sentence would say, 3 idiots don't believe this. Okay, right. But the point is, I don't think we can prove it, but I think we can help.
Yes.
We can help with the understanding.
You can gather enough information to verify.
Within reason. There are idiots who think that the Holocaust
Mm-hmm.
in Germany against the Jews did not occur.
Yes.
This has been proven in many, many courts,
Yes.
right, that it did occur. It's not a question in anyone's mind. So we can probably answer those sorts of questions.
But a more sensitive or more subtle question like global warming, is it a hoax or not?
Well, I think we would answer that one question quite precisely now, because the vast, vast majority of scientific knowledge, which is a process of iteration, indicates that this is man-made and it's happening.
Yes.
Furthermore, there are many, many observation towers which indicate it. Plus, there are volumes and volumes being written about it. So again, in Google's understanding of truth, Google would adopt the scientific method and say that it's highly likely. And I would observe that the fact that the seasons are the winters are getting shorter in the northern hemisphere, that the ice caps are melting, that weather is becoming more volatile, and all of these are issues. That volatility, by the way, drives Thai weather. So I know you had terrible flooding here a few years ago. You can imagine the weather getting worse even as the temperature gets hotter.
10 years from now, how would Google look like?
Well, you never know.
5 years?
You never know.
3 years?
We can guess. I think the most important thing that Google can do is to focus on trying to answer questions better and questions that you did not ask. I'll give you an example. So I first came here 15 years ago. And again, love the country. So what I would like Google to do is, when I landed here last night, I came in from Hong Kong, I would like Google to give me a summary, but a personal summary. This is where you stayed. This is what you did. These are your memories. These are the reference point you have. These are the important things that have changed. By the way, new government. By the way, the GDP, 60% better. Much richer country. Traffic is much worse. Right? I would like Google to anticipate those kinds of questions. Now, we can't quite do that, but I think directionally, that's where we should go. We say we want to suggest things. So I come in last night, I'm at a new hotel that was not built when I was here last. I have no idea where to eat. I don't know if my friends are here. I'm confused, I'm jet lagged, I'm tired of Hong Kong, whatever, right? I want the computer to help me make some good choices. But it needs to be personal. And will you use this? Absolutely you will. Because it'll make your life more fun, more interesting.
But don't you think sometimes it's scary that Google knows so much about us?
No, not at all.
Very scary because...
I work at Google.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, this morning before I came, I went into Twitter, Facebook, and Google Plus to ask my followers. I'm talking to Eric Schmidt this afternoon. Do you have any questions for him? I've got lots of questions. One of them is, what does user privacy mean for Google? I think that is a very serious question.
Yes, I was joking. It's obviously a very serious question. I'd like to talk about the National Security Agency as a separate matter. But the most important thing about Google is that you can control what Google knows about you. Let me make some suggestions. Let's say you have a secret that you don't want anyone to know, and in particular you don't want Google to know. If you use the Chrome browser, there's something called Incognito Mode, which allows you to browse without any information about you going to anyone, including Google. Google has a dashboard, it's called Google Dashboard, where you can actually see the information that Google has about you, and you can delete it, omit it, and things like this. So our theory here, the answer to your question, is that people have differing needs. Some people have very good reasons, some people have different reasons, some people don't care, and we should let the user decide. We believe in user choice around this. In the case of the National Security Agency, which is a big crisis now in America,
Yes.
and I think people know that there's been a lot of American spying going on as well. You know, it's like the Chinese spying and then the American spying, and you know, God knows who's next.
We all spy, they say. You spy on me, I spy on you.
Well,
what's wrong?
Google is not spying on you, and I am not spying on you.
Google
So
does not spy on us?
I can assure you Google does not spy on you.
Okay.
The NSA is another matter. So what we have done is we have expressed our outrage about this. So we've complained. Thank goodness it's free speech. We can say what we think. And we have made our systems much harder to attack by anybody. So we use what is called encryption to try to keep your email encrypted and private, so it's yours. We've tried to, the connections between all of our servers, we've tried to make them much, much harder to break. We've done everything we can think of, and by the way, we're very good at it. So we've done the best we can.
What if NSA, the National Security Agency, spies on Google's data center, which include information about us, the users? What would you do? What would you tell President Obama?
Well, I can tell you what we've told them so far,
Yeah.
which is we're very upset about it.
Upset, and what do you do?
Well, it turns out that it may be illegal, some of the things that have been going, and that would be not good. So we would complain that to the police. But the best thing that we can do is make it impossible to get your actual data through mathematical techniques, something called perfect forward privacy. There are things that we have done and continue to do. And I think that privacy is very important, right? And you realize that when you don't have it.
Can you sue the government for spying on you?
It turns out we have sued the government to, in a court called the FISA court, to ask them to allow us to be transparent about what they're doing. So even the United States is not perfect from transparency. Here I was suggesting transparency here in Thailand, but the US is not perfect either. We feel very strongly that if we could publish more legally about what the government is doing, that would lead to greater security and help. We will know in a few weeks how that case works.
What do you think of Edward Snowden? Do you think he's a good guy or bad guy?
Well, I've never met him.
No, I'm not asking you to judge his character, but what his actions so far as an American citizen, as a Google executive?
Well, first place, I don't know. I don't know he ever even applied to Google, so I wouldn't know how we would treat him. We would have to look at his resume. As best I can tell in America, when the revelations of Snowden first came out, many Americans felt that he was a traitor against national security. As best I can tell, the set of revelations in the last month or so have been so extensive and so concerning to Americans that Mr. Snowden's reputation has changed, and that he's seen more as a whistleblower or trying to expose some things. This does not involve Google, but I think the embarrassment to the administration about the spying on world leaders and so forth was quite a shock to many Americans.
To you personally, is he a good citizen? Has he broken any law?
No, he clearly broke the law, because when you have a security clearance, you have to sign a document. Which I have a security clearance, so I have signed this document, which says, I understand that this is secret, and if I do this, I will break the law. So not only did he break the law, but he's admitted it by this document. So I think it's then a matter of both a moral and a legal question as to what you do about someone who does it for conscience reasons.
Can you break the law and still be a good citizen?
Well, we have examples in America where people have done that. We've had examples in America where people have been thrown in jail. And I don't think it's completely understood. I don't know about the Thai law, but the system there are cases, the best one being the New York Times Vietnam Papers, where ultimately the actions were seen as okay.
Does Google take a position on this kind of
We do not, and there are limits to what Google should be advocating for. At the moment, we're mostly upset about the National Security Agency allegedly visiting the data on our servers.
Earlier this year, you were in North Korea. Why did you go to North Korea? You know that they are not your potential customers.
Yes, in fact, it's important to know that there's a law in America that does not allow Google to do business in North Korea, even if we wanted to. But that's okay, I'm not sure the North Koreans wanted us either. Jared and I and my daughter went to North Korea because we believe that everyone would benefit being connected, and that includes the North Koreans. North Korea is the last country that's closed. It's the last country on Earth where there's essentially no connectivity. They do have about 1 million phones, but the 1 million phones you can't call out, you can't call in, they don't roam. They have essentially no access to the internet except in the government and in certain very carefully regulated universities. They have 2 television channels, they have 1 or 2 radio stations, they have no personal music, they have no iPods. It's very much a relic of the socialist state of the 1940s. And it's very, very sad. So I believe, and I genuinely believe, that the citizens and the government of North Korea would be better with more connectivity. I think their economics would be stronger. I think the citizens would be healthier. I think the country would be more stable. And most importantly, they would be better welcome in the rest of the world.
And they look upon this as Western colonization?
Well, the North Koreans listened very, very carefully.
Did you meet the top guy?
No, he refused to meet with us. He was willing to meet with the basketball player.
Yes, Dennis.
But he refused to meet with us. But nevertheless, the Koreans were very polite. They listened very carefully. They wrote everything down, and they said, "We're thinking about it."
And they welcomed Google there?
We don't know.
Did they know that you were from Google?
Of course.
Oh, you did not
Especially after the United States said that we shouldn't go.
The State Department made a statement against that.
That's it.
And why did you go despite the government?
You know, it's extraordinarily true that in America, you can, as long as you follow the law, you can do what you want.
So
and it's absolutely legal to go to
there's
North
nothing
Korea.
wrong in going to North Korea.
As long as, in an American law, it's legal for a U.S. citizen to visit North Korea on a humanitarian gesture. And we went as private citizens on a humanitarian trip.
So you can donate money.
You can donate money so long as it's for food or humanitarian activities.
Not to upgrade their Wi-Fi. Not
No,
to
well, that would be iffy, but you have to be very careful. You cannot do business in North Korea if you're an American.
China, you're not in China. Or you were yourself personally in China, but Google has moved out to Hong Kong. But you went to China.
Yeah, no, I've been to China many times, and
You're still talking to them?
yes, we talk to them all the time. They're very nice people, right? Very tough, very nice people.
But what is your relationship in terms of business?
I think it's, well, there's a couple comments to say about China. I think we've been available in China for almost a decade. We opened up operations and a localized site 7 years ago. And because of the way their censorship law works, we had to do the censorship. We did that for about 5 years. After a particularly unpleasant attack by the Chinese army on Google's servers and the attack on the dissidents, we decided to move to Hong Kong. The effect of this was that our servers are in Hong Kong and the censorship is done by the Chinese government. And that's how we solved the problem, excuse me. So today we have a smaller market share in mainland China and a very good market share in Hong Kong.
Yeah. So your future relationship with China would depend on China's law on censorship.
I think that's fair. We will, the Chinese government really likes its censorship model. They're very happy to force people to take things down and so forth. We find that abhorrent. We're very strongly opposed to it, and they know this. So we disagree.
And you're not ready to compromise to do business there?
Well, we decided we would not.
Was that a big debate back in the headquarters?
Yes, of course. Google is a company where everything is debated.
Everything is debated. How do you make decisions?
Well, in this particular decision, what happened was we had the evidence of the Chinese attack on Google with great detail. Mm-hmm. And we had the evidence of the attack on dissidents. Mm-hmm. And we knew that the censorship was going to get worse, and indeed it has gotten worse. Mm-hmm. So based on that, we had a lengthy conversation at 4 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon in a special meeting for about 3 hours. Uh-huh. And we actually had a vote. Mm-hmm. And the majority of the executives, after listening to all of the discussion, thought that it was best to do what we did. And so that's how we operated.
Was your position against doing business in China from the beginning, or did you shift your position?
Within the management team, mm-hmm. I have always been more willing to engage, mm-hmm. and others have been more upset.
Yes.
But as an example at Google, this is how Google works. Mm-hmm. We had a vigorous debate. Mm-hmm. And at the end of that debate, everyone said, I can see your side.
Yes.
And I must say that I can see the side of the people who I disagree with. I could understand how I might have that view. Mm-hmm. And at that point, it was clear that we should make a decision. We typically do things by consensus. The consensus said to pull out. Mm-hmm. And then it became my decision to implement that. Right. And I had to call the Chinese and negotiate with them and be tough with them. Mm-hmm. And I did that along with my colleagues. Mm-hmm. And it was important, once you make the decision, to move quickly.
In your structure at Google, do you have one boss or two bosses? You have Larry, Page, you have Sergey, Brin.
I'd say the company
work with them?
Well, first place, we're very good friends. Larry and Sergey founded the company, and we have different roles. Mm. So today, I'd be fair to say that Larry runs the company.
He's the CEO.
He is the CEO, and that's what the CEO does.
But you were the CEO before.
I was.
And then he kicked you out from CEO position.
Absolutely, because I did such a bad job. No, we're best friends.
What happened? What happened? Why did you get out of that job?
I think 10 years as CEO is plenty.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I would tell you that being executive chairman is a lot of fun.
A lot of fun?
Yeah, you know why?
I know, you have private jets, you fly everywhere.
I get to go to Thailand.
Yes.
And eat good food. I get to go to Burma. I get to go to North Korea. The things that I'm doing now, I could not have done as CEO. And indeed, Larry sits in the office 12 hours a day, detail, which is what CEOs do. And I had done that before. Mm-hmm. And Sergey has been focusing mostly on Google X. So Google Glass, self-driving cars, and many amazing ideas. This is a good structure, and I think we will continue to work together for a very long time.
So the CEO, Larry, who does he report to?
Well, you know,
do you report to him or he reports to you? I'm confused.
Does it matter?
It does, for me, personally, my curiosity.
It matters to you a great deal. It doesn't matter to me at all. You know, you work as a group.
Yes.
And so I am the chairman of the board. There is a board. Larry and Sergey are the founders. In the technology industry, the founders have great power, mm-hmm. as they should. Mm-hmm. So does it matter? We're best friends, we work well together. Mm-hmm. And I think that if you look at Larry's leadership as CEO,
yes.
Look at the products and the market share and the quality, he has done a fantastic job.
So he takes
much better than I.
He takes you off the bottom line.
Yeah. The best thing about my new job is I don't actually need to worry on the quarterly numbers and all of those internal things. I can focus on the things I care about, mm-hmm. which are innovation, jobs, mm-hmm. entrepreneurship, mm-hmm. right? Getting the world wired.
Mm-hmm. There was a time when you nearly was recruited by President Obama to join his cabinet. Is that right? That was the rumor in Google. I Googled and I found this rumor about Mr. Eric Schmidt talking to President Obama, who was trying to convince him to be his Commerce Secretary?
I am very good friends with the President of the United States. I worked on his campaign and
Yes.
I supported him.
Yes.
I worked on his 2012 campaign and I think he's a good president, although one does not agree with everything the president does. But Google is my home, and I'll stay at Google forever.
So you're not denying?
It doesn't matter. What matters is that I'm going to stay at Google forever.
Okay. Forever? Okay, forever.
Forever. Forever is a long time. Because, you know, we're not done until everybody's connected. Right? Everybody has to be connected, right? And, you know, I don't know, how many more years do I have? We got to get it all done in that many years.
So politics does not interest you?
Well, the problem with American politics is it's completely irrational.
Like here?
No, it's much worse in the US.
Really?
Yes, we shut down the government for 16 days. Have you shut down your government recently?
They're trying to.
It's a mistake. No, I mean, the American politics have gotten to the point where over a small disagreement over money, the various parties cannot agree. They shut down the government for 16 days. The beauty of shutting down the American government, this is fascinating, is that if you shut down the government, 5/6, that is 83% of the government, is still working. So the definition of shutting down the government is only 1/6 of it. You can't shut down the other 5/6.
Yeah.
It just continues along. Welcome to America.
So you think the Republicans were wrong? And you think President Obama was right in this case?
Again, my personal political views, which are different. Google does not have a view on this.
Okay.
So the disclaimer is that the American system is different from most other systems in that it is a consensus-based system. It ultimately is deal-making. And what happened in this particular shutdown was the President and the Senate and the House in our system were unable to come to a deal. They're supposed to figure out a way to come to a deal. So I think you would criticize all of them. You'd criticize the Tea Party, you'd criticize the Republicans, you'd criticize the Democrats, and you'd criticize the President. But the model in America is a shared model. It has checks and balances. There's not a single decision maker.
My last question. Google's slogan is, "Don't be evil." Don't be a bad guy. Have you done anything bad that you regret that does not follow "Don't be evil" motto? You must have done a lot of bad things because you're so big, so powerful.
Perhaps there's an alternative narrative, which is that in the internet, if you do good things that make the world a better place, you can become successful. We do have a model of "Don't be evil," and that model is a good check. So there are mistakes that are made along the way, but they get corrected, and they get corrected quickly. So I'm not aware of any large mistakes. Occasionally we've made mistakes that have gotten us in trouble with regulators. We've done settlements over those. They're fairly minor in the scale of things, but we're not perfect. We do make mistakes. We apologize, and we keep going because we made a mistake. And it's important to be a little bit humble. You know, as I sit before you, I see the opportunity for Google, for Thailand, for the internet, as an enormous, enormous opportunity. We're just at the beginning of what happens when you wire a country. Imagine a decade from now, and again, we don't know. Imagine a decade from now when everyone in Thailand is wired with very good smartphones, all running Android, I might add. Think of the productivity and the beauty and the culture and the meat and the art project and all of the palaces and the great culture and the great food and the recipes and so forth. This is a tremendous opportunity. So my advice to you, and I say this to myself, is don't blow it. This is an opportunity that's a rare opportunity in people's lives to have this scale.
What would be the things that we do that you would think we will blow it? what would the mistakes as a country that we could make that could blow it?
Anything that slows down the adoption of this technology for parochial or political reasons. Often you have people who decide that they want to slow something down for local reasons, but that hurts the country. So to me, the error, I believe what I said will happen in Thailand. I think that having it happen sooner is better. In the same way that I believe that eventually North Korea will be wired, I'd like it to get wired in our lifetimes, right? But I believe the inevitability of the empowerment of the internet, that human beings are creative and curious, they want information, they're good-hearted, right? That these cultures have, the Thai culture has been around for a very, very long time. This is a rich history, a true kingdom with great achievements, right? It's not a bad system. You want to empower that system. You want to empower the citizens, right? And my personal view, and I'll say this very clearly, is that you're stronger as a group empowered by your culture and your information, and that's what the internet can do. I can tell you that, and I want to thank you for doing all of the work and organizing this with us. And,
most welcome.
And
you have
obviously,
to invite me to Google headquarters.
Yeah, we will. But more importantly, and you're the perfect person because of your background and your understanding of markets, ideas, the social networks, and the cultural impact that you've had here as a pioneer, right, in something that we care about. But the reason we do these big tents is because we want the elite, the people who think about these things, to get organized to make it happen, right? It's not a journey of one company or one person. It's a substance, it's a platform, it's a field, it's a network, right? It's a genuine network. And working together, we can bring real transparency, real political reform, real reform against corruption, real reform in education, great wealth, and frankly, a lot of entertainment, a lot of fun to a great country.
Don't you think we should make him Prime Minister of Thailand?
No, thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, I can tell you that I've observed very closely Eric since he walked up to the stage. He has no notes. He does not check on what he should say next. Everything he says, especially about Thailand, I think is from his heart. He's very passionate that Thailand really gets going and that we achieve the digital goal that will be very, very important for not only us, this generation, but for the next generations to come. Thank you very, very much, Eric.
Okay, thank you
Let's
all.
give him a great applause.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.